This is our town, the place we call home.
Welcome to This Is Our Town with Jeff Yorkie, a local public affairs presentation on MonroeCountyRadio.com.
Hello, Monroe County. This is Michelle Pallett of Monroe County Radio. And with me today, I have two very esteemed, fine gentlemen. The first is Doug Chaffin of Monroe Bank and Trust. And the second is a name you're going to learn more of. His name is Michael Rechin, and he is with First Merchants Corporation, First Merchants Bank. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. Good to see you.
It's great to see you. It's a wonderful view here at Monroe Bank and Trust. Now, I guess before we get into the big questions that everyone, is talking about, Doug, could you just give our listeners a little background on Monroe Bank and Trust, how it has served and worked with our fine community for so many years, as well as all, its residents, and how we got to where we are today?
Sure. Well, as you know, Michelle, we trace our history back to the original Dansard and Sons Bank in the back of the dry goods store of Benjamin Dansard in 1858. And we have been serving our community for over 160 years now, based on that, very loyally. We have had challenges throughout those 160 years, just like most institutions. We've gone through the Civil War, we've gone through Great Depressions, we've gone through the most recent challenge, and we've done that pretty successfully. As we continue to grow and as we continue to look at what is the next step for Monroe Bank and Trust, we really started mindfully thinking about how do we expand? How do we grow further? Do we have the capacity to do that on our own, or do we need a partner? And we finally concluded that we need a partner to do that, to do it in an effective way, in a broader way that today's marketplace, today's economy really requires a certain scale. And we went through a pretty selective process about trying to find the right partner, and the right partner that provided the value that our shareholders deserve, as well as focus on our customers, our communities, and our employees. And we've been really pleased that First Merchants rose to the top very, very quickly.
That process of choosing a partner, what are some of the things you looked for in terms of who do we work with?
Right. Well, if people really want to find a way to go to sleep quickly, we have an 84-page proxy statement that gives a blow-by-blow, week-by-week account of the thought process that our board of directors did. And we had a shareholders meeting February 14th. No coincidence to Valentine's Day, but that was the day that we chose. And during that meeting and in that proxy, we talked in great length about the board's first decision and conclusion that, hey, it was time to at least research what the market was, and the kind of criteria that we had. And of course, the fiduciary duty to shareholders it really starts to come to the forefront. We determined there was a select group that had the capacity to pay the kinds of premiums that we thought the market demanded and that our shareholders deserved. But we also felt it was very important that in addition to that purchase price, making sure it was the right cultural fit to ensure that the risk of integration was minimal, to make sure that we continued to serve the community and our customers in the way that they deserve, and in effect to broaden that. So it was a very involved selection process, and First Merchants was one of among a select group that we invited in, and they became very aggressive very early on. And thankfully, we're also a really, really good fit from a cultural perspective, from a community-focused perspective, from a client-focused perspective that we've had such a great history on, and taking care of our employees. And so we feel good about that.
As this process, as you say, was initiated on Valentine's Day 2019, and as you moved forward, what kind of feedback did you get from your shareholders?
Sure. Well, first of all, the shareholders, by and large, were extremely pleased with the price. At the time we announced it, banks kind of rate themselves, and the market rates themselves in terms of pricing, comparing the value to the market value. And at that time, it was the highest premium paid for any commercial bank in the state of Michigan over the last 10 years. So it was very aggressive. So that was good. Now, there is understandably an emotional attachment to the brand and to our 160-year-old history. And so immediately, is this the right partner? Why is the bank doing this now? I thought things were going well. They were. How are things going to change in the future? Is the name going to change? All of those things you associate with a change. And as we've talked about the fact that leadership remains, that client-facing and customer-facing staff remain, no branches are closed, all of those things that are important to people, it tends to ease that anxiety a bit.
Well, Monroe County certainly has a loyalty to Monroe Bank and Trust. It is the bank that their parents banked at, their grandparents, and other ancestors, if you will.
Right.
It's been a symbol of stability
Right.
in many times in an unstable economic situation that we find ourselves in terms of, our national, recession or depression or something like that. Mr. Rechin, what attracted you or what intrigued you about a possible partnership with Monroe Bank and Trust?
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for having me. And I'm really comfortable with Mike, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Well, Doug referenced Valentine's Day 2019. That was a significant date, to be sure, with their board deciding to move forward. The reality is I've known of Monroe Bank's growth and success for a couple of years. Two public companies, First Merchants and Monroe Bank and Trust, sharing the Midwest. We're not all that far apart. And so understanding the landscape, we've known for a while. I had a chance to meet Doug a couple of years ago. Saw the fabric of the company that he was leading, the character that he had. There was some early good fits. And then when you just figure out how you maximize the value of your company, you have options like both of our companies have had. And so it's a real slow, comfortable process, to be clear. Doug hit on something. You listen to what your customers want. They want more choice. Our business, while you think of a typical banking center as the place where a lot of our customers transact business, they want more choice now. Whether it's the phone, their den, and so that's expensive. And so to be able to afford a great response, what your clients need, make you think about getting comfortable with change. So.
And absolutely, technology does help that comfort level. 20 years ago, no one would think that your phone could record an interview like we're recording today,
Right.
or that technology would make things so much easier.
Yeah.
How is your company, how is First Merchants in terms of technology and helping the evolution towards a more one unified bank?
Well, I feel like we're trying to stay, our strategy for companies like ours, either on a separate basis or on a combined basis, is we're going to try and stay as close to leading edge as possible. There are companies like JP Morgan, as an example, that through their girth worldwide probably have a luxury of being on the bleeding edge of technology, of inventing some technologies and introducing them before they ever would become profitable. I don't think we are that company, and yet the success that we've had, the customer loyalty, and now a little bit more scale by getting into a new franchise, bringing in new talented folks and having thousands of new clients will enable us to try and stay really, really close, because I'm proud of our technology, and we're going to look to listen real hard for what our commercial clients, consumer clients need, and provide it.
As Doug mentioned, the loyalty with Monroe Bank and Trust being loyal to Monroe and Monroe County, and Southeast Michigan being loyal to Monroe Bank and Trust. that loyalty will be important to you
Yeah.
as this
Yeah.
relationship, culminates, if
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah, we have to take advantage of the loyalty. You have to show good faith, good listening skills right on the front end. And so there's a bunch of planning going on, Michelle, right now actually, for the integration. The legal event when the two companies come together is somewhat invisible to the clients. The integration event, which is scheduled in the third quarter, very visible. It's when you wake up one morning and all of a sudden the website that you're used to looks a little bit different. The advanced communications on that are going to be really thorough. We're going to try and take all of the change apprehension to as low a level as possible. But to your point, that's when we're going to need to take advantage of the loyalty. And you know what? We've got the best start, and that is the customer-facing teammates that Doug has are going to be the same customer-facing teammates through that period. So whether it's in a banking center location, a commercial banking location, a mortgage application, same folks.
If I could interject a little bit, what's really impressive about this process of integration with the First Merchants team and Mike and his team is, this is about the 17th time they've done this over the last 20 years, so it's not new. So that's a very refined process. But what's gratifying through that, I've heard Mike say this, I've heard other leaders say this, as we talk about the process and specific items. This is the way we've done it in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how we're going to do it with Monroe Bank and Trust. So let's talk about the right way to do this. Let's talk about how. Let's talk about the focus on clients and making sure that we retain that loyalty going forward.
Monroe Bank and Trust, I'm sure First Merchants has a variety of different options for different clients depending what they're looking for. It may be just a traditional account. It may be, wealth management. It may be investments, that kind of thing. What advice I like the word advice, would you give to, once this is all put together and it is all done, do you have for Monroe County to take a look at this new merged company and say, you should give us a try, or at least let's meet and let's talk about your personal needs or your company's needs?
Yeah. Well, I would say be curious, a healthy curiosity around, can this bank still serve the needs that I have? Because it's about the client. It's not about the bank. And while it's easy to think about a 401k product or a checking account or a money market account, the reality is, and it's loud and clear when you look at how Monroe conducts themselves, it's a service business. It's not a product business. And so we have to get that right. As I said, we're going to start, put our best foot forward by using the same troops, same talented folks that Doug has on his team today. But going back to the spirit of your question, give us a try. See if the sameness of it doesn't invite you to keep your business here, and then learn the change. Where we're at right now, we talk about this integration process. The term we use, Michelle, is gapping. What does your money market account look like? How does the features work? How is it presented on the website? How is it marketed externally? Compare that to how First Merchants does. What works, what doesn't work, where do the two come together? That's kind of the process we're in right now.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think that you mentioned loyalty, and we certainly appreciate that, but we never take that for granted. So while we will ask people to trust us to do the right thing, we also ask them to hold us accountable to do the right thing, and that'll continue to be our focus.
In the coming years, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, benchmark kind of time periods, what do you see in terms of the future for Monroe Bank and Trust customers who have become part of this new merger?
I think personal relationships. Where the technology goes 5 years from now, Michelle, I wish I could tell you that. 1 year and 3 years, I think where we're going to see a lot of change that we will be right in the middle of is in the payment business. You know, how you pay for things. Just walking in, you know, whether it's, I think this has been going on since I went to college, and that's 30-some years ago. That's being generous. Paper checks, moving to debit cards, moving to credit cards. I don't know what's next. You're going to be scanning things. You're going to be doing more and more business on your phone. But I guess the heart of what will be out of it is personal relationships. I'm pretty convinced that's not going away. That's what gives me some comfort, that regardless of where technology goes, people still like to trust someone with their eyes. And I think that's going to be a part of our business for a long time.
And I think locally, with this new partnership, with this merger, we see an expanded capacity already. You know, we're already offering first merchants mortgage products, residential mortgage products, and the volume is increased because it's an expanded product line. We're going to see the same thing with commercial lending, in investment real estate lending, in government-assisted lending, in just a higher capacity for loan, and broader offerings in treasury management. All those things are just pretty compelling as we continue to go to the market and expand the services that we provide both Monroe County and Wayne County.
Well, economic development is obviously not just a buzzword. It is a strong, necessary component for any community, any state, for any company. And in terms of economic development, we've heard of many wonderful new things coming to Monroe County, and obviously growth, positive capital, positive things moving forward, instill even more trust, more positive momentum, if you will, in terms of what people feel about their relationship with their financial institution.
Yeah, one of our early visits, one of Mike's early visits to Monroe, he asked for some insight, into the local market and the local economy, and he has seen, and we have shared with Mike and his staff, the Monroe County Link Plan that Tim Lake of the Monroe County BDC and Mike Bisonic with Monroe County, and just the broader leadership has really been focused on. And the bottom line is, from a First Merchants perspective, holy cow, I want to be part of that, and I want to be a catalyst for that economic growth and that potential. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, Monroe County is very lucky to have people planning a strong future, planning more diverse business, more diverse growth. That definitely does make a county, a community, more attractive to anyone looking to do business here. If I gave you a 30-second little time period in terms of how you see this economic development growing and making Monroe County stronger, what would that be? What would that sound like?
Well, I think there's always a little bit of educated risk-taking in it. I think people have to innovate and take some chances, and that's where a bank, I think, plays a critical role, kind of in the phrase that all of us are smarter than any of us. And so when you bring in elected officials, school systems, have a voice of the consumer, lean on a financial institution like Monroe, you start thinking, where can we be different? Growing is more fun than not growing, but it's not easy either. So it's a collaborative effort.
Well, what I would like to do is set a time, let's say within the next 6 months, to touch base again. And this time we bring you both into the radio station,
that'd be great,
if possible,
that'd
and learn more about how this process is moving forward. And you may even have some more exciting developments to chat about by then.
It's a great invitation.
Thanks,
Thank
Michelle.
you.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Join us every Sunday at noon and Tuesday at 7 p.m. for another edition of This Is Our Town with Jeff Yorkie a local public affairs presentation of MonroeCountyRadio.com.
This is our town, the place we call home.